Miracle Miles Advisors is our featured supplier guest today. And the topic, as you see on the screen, maximize your reinsurance program. And we are ready to get underway with some opening comments from our CEO, Doug Austin. Doug?
Oh, welcome everybody. David, thank you. We are delighted to have Miracle Mile presenting today, Peter Karp and Daniel Tang. We started this innovative webinar series about 2 years ago. And our objective is really to introduce expense category ideas, audit and recovery, new revenue opportunities with suppliers that we know, that we've vetted, that we trust, and introduce them to our client base and also to prospects that are interested. All of this is intended to either reduce your costs and help your profitability or maybe drive new revenue. So I have nothing more to add at this point, but I welcome you here today. Thank you for joining us. And I'll turn it over to Daniel and Peter.
Good morning to the West Coast folks on here, and good afternoon to everyone else. My name is Daniel Tang, and I'm a financial advisor here at Miracle Mile Advisors. Now, before we get going, I just wanted to personally thank Doug, Chris, Chuck, and the rest of the strategic source team for putting this fantastic webinar together and inviting us to share what we do and what we're seeing out there with you all. It's a pleasure to be presenting today, so thank you all for joining us. With me is Peter Karp, the man who, by means of a cold call 20 years ago, dove headfirst into the reinsurance business, specifically doing the portfolio management for the investment accounts. Peter, give the folks on this call a bit of background on yourself and a high-level understanding of what you and I do on a daily basis.
Thanks, Daniel. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining the call today as we go into the 4th of July holiday weekend. This is a very interesting business. And I'm from, generally, my background is I wrote and implemented investment policy plans for qualified and non-qualified retirement plans. And then, as Daniel mentioned, through a cold call from one of my other clients, a dealer said to me, you do such a great job managing our retirement plan and keeping us compliant. What do you know about reinsurance? And I scratched my head and I said, not much, but send me over the documents. And so he sent me over the documents, and we were off to the races. And it was amazing to me how these programs were embraced by the dealer and the dealer team, but they really weren't being fully managed, especially on the investment side. And the goal of these is to have the investment income cover the claims. But that, for the most part, that conversation never comes up. So my background comes from the asset management side of the business, and then we really started to understand how the investment management part of the program fit into the overall program. And so now our clients that use our team to quarterback their program, it's just a more cohesive program, and it really helps the dealer get the most out of the program. So that's a little bit about us. We're at $4.5 billion assets under management. Something that's very unique in this space for what we do is that just our team. And as every business owner knows, you're only as good as your team. And so we have 27 advisors and 40 support people. And we're the largest in this area for the reinsurance when it comes to servicing, not necessarily assets, but servicing. And as we all know, servicing our clients is paramount.
So we're going to kick it off with a poll question just to get everyone, just to find out who everyone in the audience is. So Dave is going to put some on the screen. I see he did so already. Just want to know who you are. Who do we have here on the webinar today? Awesome. A few dealers, some management in there, and other. All right. Well, thanks everyone again for answering this. So David, you want to go ahead and share the results? It looks like we got most participation, most people participate already. 3 dealers, 3, folks from the management side, and 11 strategic source folks. So again, welcome everyone. We just wanted to get an idea as to who our audience was, just so we could kind of tailor what we're saying to you all. So go ahead and close out of this. So here's what we're going to cover today. Let me go to the next slide. First of all, for those unfamiliar or only somewhat familiar, we're going to give you a high-level explanation as to what reinsurance is. And from there, we'll get going into what makes a successful and compliant reinsurance program, the differences between factory and aftermarket programs, some of the issues that we see in current programs, and how these programs can be and should be positioned to set up the owners, their grandkids, their kids, their key managers, et cetera, for long-term success. So I'll quickly define reinsurance. Reinsurance is, essentially insurance for insurance companies. It's the practice of insurance companies transferring or ceding a portion of their risk to other insurers in exchange for a payment or a reinsurance premium. Reinsurance helps insurance companies manage their exposure to large losses and maintain financial stability. For the insurance companies themselves, reinsurers provide stability, financial support, and risk management capabilities, enabling them to navigate the challenges inherent in the automotive insurance market. Items like increased accident frequency and rising repair costs. But what does this mean for the actual dealers? Well, for every car sold, the customer gets an option to add extra insurance products like service contracts, tire and wheel, key, dent, gap insurance, the list goes on. And all these contracts generate premiums, which depending on the program can then be invested. Properly managing the investment income in reinsurance accounts is a commonly overlooked but crucial to the success of the overall program. So here on this slide, we see the 3-legged stool. We've got the dealer and the dealer developer. We've got the administrator, and then you've got us, the advisor. So the administrator is responsible for the remittance and claims management. They're the ones overseeing the entire program. Then you've got the dealer developer, who works directly with the dealer and the sales team. Essentially, they're training the sales staff on product knowledge and proper implementation techniques. And finally, you have the investment advisors, a team who not only is a fiduciary to the client on the asset management side, but a team that can fully support the entire program. Each dealer is different, and so each has a different goal. Each has different needs. So choosing the right investment advisor with the flexibility to work with different administrators, open accounts, and hold assets anywhere, and really build out long-lasting financial plans, succession plans, insurance and estate plans, anything with a dollar sign on it, really, the investment advisor should be in your corner. Now, the reinsurance we're talking about today is different from factory programs, and it's all about control. Peter, can you elaborate a little bit more on this point? Because it's very important. Talk about the key differences between, the factory programs and the aftermarket reinsurance programs.
From what I know in the industry, we're the only ones that could help you with factory and aftermarket programs. And in a world where we have control of very little on your reinsurance, giving control to someone else isn't the best idea. On the factory programs, our dealers that we work with, most of them do some factory. It's important to understand how the factory program fits into your program. And the factory program isn't your program. The factory program doesn't allow you to control where the monies are being invested. It doesn't allow you to control the income. It's forced upon you. And whether you're in the Toyota VIP program, or you're a Ford dealer and you're in the Tarek roadside program, we could help you balance your factory program with your aftermarket program, and we can manage the money within those programs. So looking at the reinsurance versus the aftermarket, the key is getting maximum participation in the underwriting profits and making sure you're getting the most out of your program. And And that's something that we can help you with on the investment side, versus the factory program. Maximize your potential investment income. Over the last 15 years, we've seen declining interest rates. Well, that works well when you're focused on the bond part of your portfolio. But now interest rates have gone up, and that's actually affected the return on many of these reinsurance companies. And you have to get ahead of that and not be reactive, but be proactive in order to continue to make investment income and protect principal. Using this effectively as an employee retention tool for your key managers. Everyone is complaining at the dealerships about getting quality talent. Well, quality talent needs to be retained. And this is one way to do it. And we can show you what our other top dealers are doing. You could use this as an estate planning tool, and really help in generational wealth transfer. You could add owners to these programs. You could take loans against these programs. These are all things that are very, very flexible, but you have to have the right program with the right team in place. There's also with taxation, taxes we're in California, and our California dealers and New York dealers and the high tax states really use this as a way, as a tax play that helps them reach their goals. And saving money on taxes is like making money. And then really qualifying and making sure that you're qualified for the 831B company, that is something that we help you adhere to, not just on the factory, but also on the reinsurance side. And like I mentioned, distributions, if you do this properly, you can really substantially do what's called an income shift from the dealership level to preferential tax treatment through the retirement, and the ability to direct earned out funds. Usually with the factory program, there's limitations, and there aren't really limitations when it comes to your own reinsurance company. You just have to adhere to the investment policy statement.
And we've got a few questions coming in. I wanted to address one of them, and some of them we'll wait till the end to address. But one of the questions was, Peter, how many warranties do you need to sell a month, to do a reinsurance company? Is there a limit or a recommended requirement?
So there's different programs, right? There's walkaway programs, which you could be in reinsurance, but you're not controlling the investments and you're not managing your programs. There's retro programs. There's a lot of different types of structures. So, if you're selling 25 to 50 cars a month, you should highly consider a reinsurance structure. And most of our, and this is not just for new car dealers. It's for used, it's for motorsports, RVs. I mean, there's a lot of different types of reinsurance companies out there. So if you have these individual questions, just, you could send us an email, give us a call, and we'll do the analysis to make sure that what structure is right for you, and if reinsurance in general is right for your business.
Another poll question for y'all. For the dealers on this, what structure do you have? All right, so CFCs, NCFCs. For those who are in the other, I'd be curious if you could just drop something in the chat, because I don't think we can open it up to have you speak. But if you could drop something in the chat, let me know which ones you have. If it's a retro account, if it's something else, we can briefly mention it. But that just gives us, this is helpful. This gives us a good sense as to what we're dealing with. Looks like it kind of ranges the entire.
We have a good cross section here.
Yeah, we can go ahead and end this poll, David. Just show everyone what we got. 2 CFCs, NCFCs, a DOWC, and a few others. Peter, any thoughts on this?
No, I mean, look, the business is evolving, right? And Doug and I were talking about this before the webinar today. And with the changes, just because you had an NCFC and you've had an NCFC or a CFC, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't look maybe to a DOWC or another structure. You have to understand that we're a fiduciary to you. And so we just want to make sure that you have the right structure, because having to go back and redo the structure just takes time and money. And it's something that we're all short of, time and money, right? To redo these programs. There's also, we're finding a lot of our dealers have legacy programs, and those programs need to be managed too. And they need to be managed differently than your existing program that you're seeding into. So it's important to know not just what you have, but the capabilities of what you have versus what's out in the marketplace. And we work with a team that could help you make that determination of what's right for you. Right now, there's a big push for DOWCs, and DOWCs are not for everyone. Actually, they're just for a few, a sliver of dealers out there, frankly. Yet you're seeing a lot of advertising and pushing on DOWC, and there's a reason for that. The fees, they look lower, but in a lot of ways, they're actually higher, and there's restrictions on the program. So you have to know what you have. But we work with all these different structures. The structure to us is mute.
So the next slide here are 5 of the main issues that we run into when analyzing other reinsurance programs. I'll run through these briefly and then talk about each one more in depth as we go through the slides. But problem 1, the investment advisor or broker, as it's commonly referred to in the business, doesn't schedule regular reviews. Given what happened in the markets last year, the portfolio was not being prudently managed. Tons of accounts got absolutely crushed, frankly, last year, leaving the dealers scratching their heads. Problem 2, the investment policy statement was not being observed, and thus the account was completely out of compliance. Third problem, the dealer and their management team don't have a full understanding of the program. So if they don't know what options they have, for example, if they wanted to take a loan, then they're not making the most out of their program. Fourth issue, when the investment advisor is not a fiduciary. I mean, you need a true fiduciary advocating for the client, to be the wind at the sails of the program and not just selling products and services. And the fifth and final problem, and this is much more commonplace than you'd think, is when the dealer has a bunch of legacy positions, old reinsurance accounts from prior administrators that they just don't know where they all are. And we'll go into each one a bit more in depth. Here we go. So how do you combat problem number 1, where the broker's not there? He's absent. The accounts were down bad and therefore eating into the profit of the overall program. Show up to the meetings, educate the owners, and, be a fiduciary. Peter, tell us a little bit more about this issue.
We're getting a lot of questions, which is good. So being a fiduciary is really, really important. So the point is, if you're not there at the meetings, listening to what the other advisors are saying, whether it's the agent, the dealer, developer, you really can't add value. And what happens is, last year, if the portfolio was static, a lot of the session statements are showing losses, and the dealer doesn't understand that. And if you're at the dealership, you can actually take losses, carry your losses forward to help offset your tax liability in the following year. Also restructuring, making the dealer actually understand how what happened last year is important, because these monies are for to cover claims. And so it's important to have, a tight grip on the program.
So the second problem has to do with compliance. Each administrator, each program has different requirements on how the reserves and premiums are being invested. And this all boils down to how each insurer assesses risk and quantifies potential liabilities. The objective is to always have adequate capital as a buffer against unforeseen losses. And that's what the investment policy statement, the IPS, encompasses. Compliance with the IPS is paramount, not only to the success of the overall program, not only to the overall investment performance, but really just to stay within bounds when it comes to the law. You don't want a program to be jeopardized, for example, losing your 831B status because the investment advisor wasn't fully aware or, was just ignoring the IPS. Peter, your thoughts?
Daniel, it's not just ignoring the IPS, not knowing what the IPS is, right? So our agents and administrators are opening up accounts at, brokerage firms and banks, and you're just a number on a page. And sometimes they're managing the money, just blind, and they're just managing the money as per what's prudent in the marketplace, but actually not adhering to concentration risk in these IPSs, and knowing, especially when you're using mutual funds within these programs, not knowing what's in the mutual fund, and then it negates the investment policy statement. So this is what it all comes down to, to being a fiduciary. We get paid by assets under management, not by trading, not by but not by mutual fund managers. It's strictly a fee that you can see. And that's important because to comply with the IPS, you have to know what's in your programs. And we have an investment management team in-house that does that. So we know exactly what's in the programs, because asking for forgiveness when you go through an audit is not, it's not defensible.
Problem 3 relates to improper education. So here's where the dealer doesn't know the capabilities of their program. Does the dealer know how to, I mentioned earlier, take a loan, for example? Peter, how does the education component factor in?
Well, for the most part, it's every advisor in these programs. And when I say advisor, the agent, the dealer developer, us, what we're looking to accomplish is to get the most out of the investment program in light of the investment policy statement with the lowest possible cost. That's the goal, and to cover claims. And knowing how, these programs, you could have the best possible program, and if you don't know the components of the program and how they work, it's like having a sports car and not getting it out of second gear. You're not utilizing it. So showing up at every one of these meetings, or being present by a Zoom, or being on a conference call is important. And if you don't know who your advisor is by name, you need to find a new advisor. It means you're not talking to them enough. And that's very, very important. And we have to repeat what we're doing with dealers frequently. I mean, dealers are under so many different regulations. They're going to dealer 20 groups. They're trying to adhere to the factory and the customer and take care of the customer, that many times we're just constantly re-educating the client on how to take loans. Most dealers we see that we're introduced to just take a distribution at the end of the year. And that's very much like your factory program. And you're really negating some of the benefits of the program. So the education is paramount. Knowing your client is prudent. In fact, it's part of the fiduciary standard, knowing your client, and tailoring the program for them. Because these programs, not necessarily the factory program, but the aftermarket programs are highly flexible. You just have to have the right program.
And then, Peter, you mentioned fiduciary. I want to back it up and just give you a definition straight from Investopedia. I just pulled this up, which is great, by the way. A fiduciary is a person or organization that acts on behalf of another person, putting their client's interests ahead of their own with a duty to preserve good faith and trust. So being a fiduciary requires being bound both legally and ethically to act in, the client's best interests. Peter, talk a little bit more about why you want a fiduciary in your corner.
Right. And there's a lot of what we're finding out there is that everyone is trying to do the best job they possibly can. I mean, I go into each relationship with that thought in mind. But if you're selling product, you're selling product. I mean, the goal is to sell product. You're not a fiduciary. You might have a great relationship, but the goal of that person is, or that business, is to actually sell products and services. For us, it's more education. The management follows the investment policy statement and the goals. It has to be, banks and brokers are not fiduciaries. And I was talking to a bank yesterday, and the program said that it has to be in AAA rated short-term securities less than 3 years. So they were charging, the bank was charging a maintenance fee, they were charging a trustee fee, and they had them in a money market. Now, most people don't read the prospectus of their money market, but the money market rate was 2.5%. Well, I mean, my team, we're paying, our custodians that we're working with are paying close to 5%. And that was a fee that the client didn't see. And that's not being a fiduciary to your client. And by having an investment manager at that bank, we would cut those fees and make sure that the portfolio not only is prudent today, but in light of their goals, prudent in the future. And that's the difference. One is suitability, and one is suitable. It might be suitable today, but it might not be suitable for you in the future. As a fiduciary, we have to look out into the future. And this is where it comes to really knowing your client and not just knowing the markets.
Wanted to address one of these questions. Someone, Jay, was asking about an example of being out of compliance with the IPS. Peter, could you just give a quick example maybe, or elaborate a little bit more on this point?
I'll give you a perfect example. In fact, I stepped out of a relationship with a dealer because the dealer wanted to concentrate their reinsurance company in the technology space. And, it's bad enough that the S&P 500 is more than 25% in technology. But, that is not prudent. Having a 5% position in Amazon, though it's a wonderful company, is not being compliant with the investment policy statement. There's for each reinsurance company, there's a concentration clause. And you have to be very careful with that. And if you don't know what your IPS is, we'll help you. We'll tease out the IPS from your documents, and we'll show you what your IPS is and what it says and what it allows you to actually do.
And then I've noticed a few questions about these super CFCs versus, a DOWC or a NCFC.
Correct.
Let's, Peter, you can mention this a little bit, but it's more of a complex topic. It's, I'll let you speak to this briefly.
Yeah. So there's a lot, everyone is trying to differentiate themselves in the industry, right? We put up the main structures. There's some nuanced structures, but when you hear things like super CFCs and, or a branded, that's a brand. So, you have to separate the marketing from the structure. And by the way, that was when Daniel, when you asked me a question earlier, I was typing an answer to that question. So.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the structures, the NCFCs, the CFCs, non-controlled versus controlled foreign corporation, the DOWCs, it's an entirely, it's a beast all on its own, talking about the different structures.
And that's through we will put you in touch with an agent that can actually educate you on that instead of selling you on a DOWC, because that's the hottest thing. Every conference we're going to, DOWCs are the talk of the town. And they're not, like I said, they're really not for everyone. They're actually for a small segment of the dealer population, motorsport and RV population.
Right.
So we can. So what we can do is, if Doug, if we want another webinar, we could go through the different structures and talk about that, because that's a 45-minute to an hour-long conversation just among itself.
Yeah. And I see we're already a little over half an hour in, so I'll keep plugging away. Last problem, and we see this all the time. It's where the dealer has a bunch of legacy positions, old reinsurance accounts from prior administrators, and they don't know where they all are. So we're able to manage each position regardless of where the assets are held or who the prior administrator was, and then we put it all together on one dashboard so that our dealers can view all of their reinsurance accounts in one place. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't tell you when we get in. Sometimes it's a year into the relationship, and we find that there are programs, especially if it's a second or third generation dealership, father to son, father to daughter. We have they're finding programs that they have assets in these accounts, and they don't know how to access them, or they don't know what the runoff schedule is, or they possibly could actually get recaptured. We manage a recapture account for one of the largest players in the reinsurance space. We manage their money. And so we see these recaptures, and they could really benefit the dealer. Sometimes for a younger dealer, it doesn't make sense. But for an older dealer that has other focuses, it can make complete sense. Also, with these recaptures, you should being a fiduciary, we help you get the most out of your recapture quote. So there's so much with these multiple plans. And then your factory program. You could put your factory program on the dashboard. So you see how you can, because sometimes dealers need to do a certain amount of factory product to get the type of products they want, and that's fine. But you don't want to do more than you have to. There's also some programs that you want to put in maybe one reinsurance company and not another, and these are all things that discussion topics that if you haven't talked about with your advisor, with your investment advisor, with your agent, you should be. And then we'll put it all on a dashboard. You could see it when you log on, and then you know what your overall position is, and what the pain points are, or what's really working well. But you can't do it if you don't see it and you don't track it. It just, it's out there in the ether.
Last poll question for everyone. Just want to get a sense of what your goals personally are for reinsurance, and it could be a combination of everything, but just what's the primary driving force here for you?
Yeah, and it's nice to see that as a wealth building tool is in the lead, which is such a wonderful. I mean, that is such a powerful point of these reinsurance companies, but there's so much more. So if you're because I'm seeing wealth building, there's ways to continue to build the wealth, but even accessing the funds. So if you're a dealer that wants to learn about these strategies, and you're not talking to your advisor at your bank or you're at the brokerage firm about this, or they might not even know because they don't know the other components of the program. We're here to help, and you can just send us an email, and we'll go over these strategies that we've been using for decades. So let's talk about the offer here. So if you have a reinsurance company, if you're looking to establish a reinsurance company, just contact us, and we'll help you assemble your team in a fiduciary manner, so you know that you're really seeing the full landscape, so you can make an educated decision. Also, our fees are transparent. It's one fee you can see. It's a sliding scale, assets under management. It's very, very simple. We don't charge for meetings. We don't charge to come out and see you. It's part of our program that you get 100% of us. And we've been doing this for decades and working on all different programs, from a DOWC to a CFC to factory programs. So there's really nothing that we can't help you with if there's a dollar sign in front of it. But if we don't have the answer, we know who to go to get the answer. And that's imperative in our business. So the key is expertise in a dedicated service team, really doing the analysis to see where the holes are, if any, in your system. I worked with a dealer last week, and I got to tell you, other than the asset management, they have a phenomenal agent and an amazing dealer developer. And there was very little value that I added other than reduce the fees on the account, the asset management, and show up to meetings. The communication is important. So the communication is actually knowing who your contact person is as your investment advisor, not just the firm. You're not buying a firm, you're buying the advisor at the firm. And then we're advocates for our dealers. I was just talking to one of my dealers yesterday in the Pacific Northwest. They have 16 stores and they're looking for a CFO. Well, we're in hundreds and hundreds of these meetings and calls, and we know the CFOs that are on the move. Everyone asks me every time I show, do you know a service advisor in my area? I'm looking for service advisors. So then we have dealers that are looking to maybe sell one of their dealers. We are out there meeting. I call this it's a belly to belly business. We're out there talking to our dealers. We're seeing our dealers, and because of that, we're able to help them with other resources beyond reinsurance. So this is just a few things a few hot buttons. Maximize the tax benefits. A lot of am I getting the most out of my program? Should I take a loan on my A account and scrape it, put it into a B account and borrow against it to maybe do some lending to my customers? That could be an option for you. Let's explore that. Sessions review. A lot of our clients, after the fact, they parse out the session, and they might call and ask me a question. I might not know the answer because it's not in my wheelhouse, right? It's not my lane. We stay in our lane, but we know who to lean on in the program to get your questions answered quickly. We have $4.5 billion under management. Why is that important? It's important because it's scale. In this day and age, the more scale you have, the better the pricing. And we give our clients not a flat fee, it's a scaled price. So the more assets you have, the more services that we're helping you with, the lower the cost of the program to you. We're held to a fiduciary standard. And if you get anything out of today's webinar, it's important to work with a fiduciary, not to work with just your bank. Work with a bank and a fiduciary. Work with a trust company and a fiduciary. work with a brokerage firm and a fiduciary. And we manage money everywhere. We have money at Morgan Stanley. We have money at Bank of Oklahoma. We have money at Comerica. It goes on and on and on. And that's important to work with a fiduciary, someone who's only working in your best interest, and it's a fee that you could see. We work with over 350 reinsurance accounts. We manage money for reinsurance companies. And we're working with over 200 dealers across the country. I'm usually on a plane somewhere going to see a dealer, but there's always time to talk to clients, and strategic advisors. We also work with other advisors. There's a lot of advisors that maybe you have a financial planner you like working with. Well, they're not in reinsurance. Well, we'll work with them. We'll share reports with them. We're collaborative. So this is important. And the investment policy statement. If you don't know what your investment policy statement says, please give us a call and we'll get that investment policy. We'll tease that out for you. And lowering the cost of the program. I can't tell you, it's so important to know what fees you're paying, because it might look that the program is a skinny plan and there's leakage off the back end of the program, and you're actually losing money, and it would be better to pay a little bit more and get a lot more.
So, we've spent a little while talking. We've answered some questions throughout, but we have some frequently asked questions. I don't think we have time to go through each one, but I think the slide deck should be sent to you all. If not, reach out. We'll get that to you. If anyone has any other questions at this point, now's a good time to drop them in the chat. Doug, David, Chris, if anyone, speaking has any questions, feel free to chime in and we can try to, we'll do our best.
So Daniel, do we have time to go over these, or at this point? Because I can't tell you, if you have a program right now and you don't understand what happened last year in the markets and how to utilize, and the positions that you had weren't tax managed last year, it's going to hurt you in the future. But looking forward, when you have short-term interest rates where they are right now, you have declining profitability in companies as costs are rising. It's important to have your assets positioned properly to protect principal and increase your income in an environment that we haven't seen in decades. There's so much opportunity to generate income now because of where the interest rate environment is, and to mitigate risk.
Letting people know they can click on the Q&A button to ask their question of Daniel or Peter. And here is one. How does each reinsurance program differ from administrator to administrator?
Okay, that's a good question. It depends on the plan document and the clip, right? The insurance clip, and the relationship that the operator of the reinsurance program has with the insurance company. It also has to do with, are the programs siloed? Some programs are pooled programs. Well, if it's a pooled program, it's not customized to you. So again, it's really looking at the plan documents, where the domicile is. I know a lot of times that's not important to the dealer, but it should be, because that actually there's different costs to actually have the program in the Seychelles. A lot of the domiciles have been raising fees. A lot of new players in the space have popped up, like more and more so the Delaware Tribe, and there's others. And so let's look at what you have now versus what you want and what you need, and make sure those coincide and mesh. And these are other services that we provide. When we're sitting with a dealer, sometimes these come up. I can't tell you how poor the planning is with estate planning attorneys when it comes to these reinsurance companies. It's like, we have clients with 5, 10, 15, $50 million in these programs. And it's not a part, and the ownership of the programs, they're not including that in their estate planning for the dealership. Also, when you're selling your dealership or you're buying a new dealership, it's important to take a look at what reinsurance companies reinsurance programs they were using. So these are all other services. That's just one, but these are all the other services that we provide.
And again, what we do for the dealers is more than just asset management, right? We're here to support all of our dealers' financial lives. So our services, under one assets under management fee, we're here to support the dealers, their families, their management, and it really comes down to the bottom line to, hits the dealership's customers as well. So the purposes of the presentation was, to tell you all about what we do, but, also just to help you become better operators, to educate you. And really that's just the first step. So Peter, I'll let you wrap this up with our last slide here, how to contact us and whatnot. But everyone on this call, appreciate your, you joining us. And Peter, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, at any time, send us an email. My email is pcarp@miraclemileadvisors.com. Our phone number is on the screen. This is just 3 of the 7 people on our reinsurance team. We have an investment management team in-house. And what we're finding is a lot of dealers are working with teams that are light when it comes to resources. And you have to have a deep bench in this business. And you have to be able to spend the time with the dealer. And you can't spend time with the dealer if you don't have a great team. I can't go out and fly out to Pennsylvania and spend a full day with a dealer if we don't have the deep bench that we have with the knowledge base that we have. So I'd like to thank everyone for being on this call. Doug, these educational programs are so important. I'm impressed by how many people were on this call today and the diversity of people on the call. We had dealers, we had vendors, across the board, which it's a testament to the type of programs that you put out for your clients. And I want to thank you for including us today, Doug.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. We know we've been servicing the automotive dealer network since 2000. We know how important the reinsurance opportunities are. So we really appreciate you guys sharing your expertise today. And Daniel and Peter, well done. We appreciate it. For everybody that's in our audience today, thank you for coming. We will have a copy of the webinar available, if not tonight, sometime tomorrow. We typically hang the webinar on our website, but we will also make the deck available to you as well if you're interested. So reach out to us at sales@strategicsource.com, or you can reach out to Chris Austin, 612-386-3898. He can help you with the deck. If you're interested in controlling expenses, improving profitability, and you need some help on the sourcing and purchasing side, well, we're happy to help you with that too. So there's a complete library of all webinars that we've done on our website. So I'd encourage you to browse that over and see if there's something there of interest. So with that, Peter and Daniel, thank you. And David, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, Doug, before you turn it over to David, I want to say one more thing. This is a complex program, right? And you're not expected to know everything. And I've been in meetings with dealers where there's 5 or 6 different vendors in the meeting. And the dealer actually doesn't feel comfortable asking, what's the difference between a CFC and an NCFC? And I appreciate that. And so, maybe we could have another webinar on the different structures. Any of these slides, we could drill down with any of these slides. I mean, I say this all the time. There's no stupid questions. If it's in your mind and you want to know about it, we're here. Doug, Daniel, myself, David, we're here for you. And this is why when a dealer says, "Hey, I haven't heard of Miracle Mile," because most of our growth has been organically. Most of the time, these dealers bring us to their 20 group because they know their other colleagues are not getting this type of support and education. And so I really want to impress upon the dealers to ask questions. Don't assume. Just ask the question, and we're always here for you. So, David, I'll turn it to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Peter, and of course, Doug. And we brought up the post-session survey on the screen. We'd love to get your questions or your answers to those two very brief questions before we wind up the time to see how things went in your eyes. Always helps us as we plan future webinars. So we appreciate everyone's time today, and we look forward to you joining us on future webinars with Strategic Source. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.